Imagine a world where struggles, divisions, and secrets feels just like our own. A kingdom divided by race, poverty, and power. Welcome to Metaphor Refantazio, where every choice you make sends ripples through a world that's both hauntingly familiar and undeniably magical. In this detailed spoiler-free review, we'll be diving into its core mechanics and designs, as there are possible issues that you might encounter or differ from your expectations. There is no question that this game truly delivers a stellar experience for many, but the main question is it actually for you? This video will answer all of your questions to ultimately help you decide if Metaphor Refantazio is worth your precious time and hard-earned cash. Set in the United Kingdom of Ukraine, Metaphor Refantazio drops players into a layered fantasy world where the protagonist, guided by a fairy named Gallica, is on a personal mission to lift a deadly curse placed on his childhood friend. Unlike previous Atlus games, our hero is fully voiced, breathing life into interactions and the political intrigues of a world in turmoil. Ukraine is a melting pot of distinct races, each with unique beliefs and deeply entrenched social hierarchies. The world reflects modern-day issues, exploring themes of societal structure, racial tensions, and class divides. This approach puts players into a powerful narrative that examines both unity and division in ways that echoes today's world. The story pacing, though methodical, accelerates after the first few hours, sinking players into a gripping tale with well-executed twists. A series of intriguing events, and this build-up hooks you until the end. The game is expected to be longer than usual because of its Japanese role-playing game design. Given the nature of having lengthy dialogues and cutscenes, I was surprised that it successfully holds itself from start to finish, narrative-wise. If you are a newcomer to the genre, expect that you will be sitting through a lot of dialogues, as building connections and making bonds are the main points of this game, so it is better to have the mindset that combat will not be the huge time sinker in this game, but rather the RPG bond building aspects. That is, if you will play this in a straight manner. Players will often progress by following an overarching quest or your main quest in the game, and usually these type of quests are monumental tasks to complete and often turn the tides of the narrative upon completion. While on the side, the game gives players the option to receive and complete side quests that help them progress in the game by getting rewards and additional currencies. In the downtime between major events, players will have the chance to interact with interesting characters and NPCs, each with intricate backstories and personalities that make Ukraine feel like a living, breathing kingdom. What is a Japanese role-playing game without thoughtful companions? I am one of those who carefully examines the characters, how each of them plays their role in the narrative. Not just their roles but also their backstories and unique characteristics. Being the main driving force or the protagonist of the story, I find the most joy when I get to know my core members and deeply connect to them. Knowing what they think about my leadership or seeing each of their characters develop throughout the journey, especially the characters that I love the most, is one of the most enjoyable experience in my playthrough. I find most of the party members and NPCs likable and distinct, which help me connect to them easily. The flow of the story is usually long days of respites where you can do side tasks or improve your social stats called virtues. Then certain dates serves as deadlines, and these dates are usually where major events happen. We can see this formula or trend as the game progresses, allowing the player to have the freedom to shape the protagonist. The game does have its quirks though. Some story elements feels unbelievable or unintentionally amusing. I call these events or happenings typical Atlus tropes. These typical Atlus tropes or story events usually have a lot of loopholes that make you question how the characters will be able to push through or pull certain hilarious acts. Instead of bending my brain in understanding how a certain event worked, I just learn to enjoy how the act goes or see its outcome by not worrying about the specifics. Yet these moments don't detract much from the overall experience. They're more like unexpected, light-hearted surprises in an otherwise heavy narrative. Metaphor Refantazio successfully nailed the story and setting in our book, having a score of 8.5. The visuals are a bit of a mixed bag. Some scenes, especially in the cities, are crafted with great detail, giving each location a distinctive look and feel that makes exploring them rewarding. One of the highlights of my experiences is when I get to explore these awesome locales for the first time. Expect to explore vibrant and buzzing cities and castles, forsaken towers, underground caverns, lush forests, and long-forgotten tombs. Although city maps are pretty basic, the distinctive appearance of each main city makes up for it. I certainly took my time exploring the nooks and and crannies of each new city that I came across, eagerly observing what special new materials or facilities that I could take advantage of. On the other hand, there were some parts where updated textures and landscape designs were pretty clear to see, and these faults were glaring at times. The city landscape in general is remarkable and distinctive, however, optional dungeon designs falter by comparison, often appearing repetitive and uninspired most of the time. The UI, in true Atlus style, is flashy and expressive, enhancing the game's vibrant character. Since Persona 5, Atlus has made an outstanding impression of being creative in their UI design, and it still applies very well in Metaphor Refantazio. Its slick design blends in combat and explorations with these seamless transitions, making everything snappy and engaging. The well-executed UI design, not just in the main menu, made every combat encounter enjoyable in almost the entirety of my first playthrough. One of the game's highlights is its original soundtrack. As expected from Shoji Meguro's team's outstanding work, they have created memorable compositions that amplify the emotional weight of every moment, adding depth to both ordinary battles and epic confrontations. I believe that Shoji Meguro's team step up their game by leaning to a full orchestra arrangement, which of course matches the theme of the game. If you love Shoji Meguro's work in previous titles, you would likely appreciate their new work in Metaphor Refantazio. When it comes to voice acting, English voice acting is uneven at times. It can be a hit or miss for many, however, I find the English voice acting decently well played. However, the Japanese cast delivers solid performances, which is expected. The sound design, whether in exploration or combat in general, needs rehaul, as I felt they sounded the same compared to previous Atlus titles. It's clear they borrowed a lot of the existing sound effects from the previous titles, and because of this, it made me feel that I was playing a repainted game with a different setting by just hearing these borrowed sound effects. When the next project comes, say Persona 6, I believe Atlus needs to start from scratch to truly provide the next generation full-blown JRPG experience. Touching on the game's graphic fidelity once again, I am aware that JRPGs have their style and presentation, however, it is hard for me to not compare Metaphor Refantazio to recent JRPGs, especially Grand Blue Fantasy Reeling or Tales of Arise, which was released 3 years ago, and both titles have this breathtaking graphic fidelity. Metaphor Refantazio has its captivating graphic fidelity, and nothing is going to change that. However, I felt that Studio Zero can still step up their game and excel. In the overall presentation department, this game will have a solid 8.5 in our book. Metaphor Refantazio will keep you busy with traditional JRPG style long dialogues, however, it doesn't mean that it lacks on the gameplay department. 70% of the player's hands-on experience will be divided into two main categories. First is your social activities, and second is your dungeon exploration, or some might call it the dungeon crawling experience. Increasing your social links or virtues helps the protagonist to participate in much more difficult or advanced activities, which are most of the time side quests or bond increasing activities. Dungeon exploration, as you might have guessed, will allow you and your party members to gather experience by killing enemies and hunting loot to ultimately progress and grow stronger. Players will be balancing their limited schedule between the said two activities before a certain deadline comes. And as mentioned, this is when the main story progresses. Spending time wisely is key in this game. Going into dungeons or doing certain side quests or participating in activities takes time. In my experience, having a sense of limited time and scheduling let me be more involved in the game, and this is one of the aspects that I love in Atlus's formula. Certain actions may waste a night or a day, so I need to manage my schedule carefully. Every decision that I made along the way felt weighty and impactful, so I needed to consider and plan ahead for what I needed on certain days, leading to an immersive experience, and this defined the role-playing aspect. With that being said, the scheduling system may be a huge hit or miss across different types of players. But my general advice for all of the newcomers in the series is, given the fact that careful schedule management is a must, I suggest not thinking about how to manage schedules deeply and just enjoy the game and do what they think is best for their playthroughs. You would be surprised how many players decided to stop playing just because of overthinking their schedules, so this needs to be addressed. If you decide to dive into a dungeon exploration is a different story though. As mentioned previously, take it as your regular dungeon crawling experience where you will typically kill enemies for XP and earn currencies that can be used in your daily life activities. Dungeon exploration is my least favorite in this game, especially when traversing optional dungeons, as their level designs fails in comparison to major cities' beauty. As mentioned, I find most of them identical or lack variety and feel cumbersome to explore. This is one of the aspects where Studio Zero or Atlus in general needs to concentrate. Sure, I am aware that this is the staple design when you carefully observe its predecessors, and I firmly believe that it is time to step up the game and change the norm. It is time to completely move on from having this boxy maze-like map design. It feels repetitive in later stages with no incentive whatsoever other than finding new loot or spots to level up my characters. In the previous Atlus titles, your party member's MP is the balancing factor when exploring dungeons, and this remains faithful in Metaphor Refantazio. If the player fails to complete a dungeon on a single day, they need to spend another day and try to finish what they've started. Like schedule management, I was forced to manage my MP wisely in combat to eventually reach my goal of completing the dungeon in a day to make use of my time. Although there are a lot of ways to alleviate MP losses and make it non-existent later down the game, I enjoyed the time when the game forced me to be wise in my decisions in combat by making me accountable for whatever the outcome of my actions. The whole combat design was an enjoyable experience from all aspects. Although no significant design breakthroughs were applied to combat implementations, Atlus capitalized on their well-tested turn-based combat formula and imported it into this new installment. Overworld combat allows the player to fight their adversaries in real time. When the player performs regular attacks to hit their enemies, successfully draining their stun gauge will give the player the upper hand in turn-based battles, also known as the squad battles. Expect your usual Atlus turn-based formula where combat emphasizes extreme planning and exploiting enemy weaknesses to gain the upper hand is going to be your bread and butter. Knowing your party members' weaknesses is a must to effectively overcome difficult challenges. Combat transitions seamlessly from exploration, and again, Atlus UI designs once again shines, adding flair to every fight and maintaining these energy-pumping vibes in every encounter, which is a very huge plus in my experience. The protagonist and the band will be fighting enemies with heroic embodiments called archetypes. Archetype serves as personas compared to the previous Atlus or Persona titles. These heroic embodiments provides various abilities and skills for the wielder to take advantage of in combat. These heroic beings have their classifications or lineage such as warrior, mage, knight, gunner, and more. Each has its own strength and weaknesses in combat and unique offerings to the table that can turn the tides in battle. Being able to perform simple to advanced skill combination while trying to exploit or outsmart my enemies is the most engaging point of combat in my experience. Almost every boss encounter provided an excellent experience as each of them was designed with uniquely designed fight mechanics for the players to figure out. The same goes for regular enemies as they get harder and smarter with newly equipped skills and abilities that can keep you on your toes, especially when reaching to endgame. However, one of my greatest gripes is having a lack of enemy variety. Expect a lot of reshades or reskin enemies in the game even in key fights. I mentioned each enemy has their own quirk for the player to figure out. However, when fighting the same types of enemies for the second or third time is pretty distracting and holds back the experience. Because of this, some boss fights were anticlimactic, especially when we are talking about the hardest challenges in the game. I usually play on hard mode to fully grasp the game's difficulty curve since I felt that the normal difficulty was too easy and Atlus veterans will likely do the same. However, newcomers in the series are welcome to stay on the normal difficulty, especially when adjusting to the game's mechanics. Control feedback animation in overall battles felt outdated in some parts, especially when I tried almost every weapon type in the game. Overall battles felt clunky or stiff and lacked fluidity in most parts, and this should be worked on. As mentioned previously, I felt that some of the assets were reused, and this practice worked for a long time. However, I felt that Atlus should aim for higher standards, especially when talking about motion capture implementations to highly improve the overall animation. One thing that distracted me the most when exploring areas was the motion blur effect when sprinting. This was a major issue for a lot of players which can cause motion sickness. However, I happily report that Atlus released an update recently where you can turn off this blur effect in the settings, which I highly suggest turning off. While the excessive camera shake remains an issue when reading through dialogues, especially when traveling with the Gauntlet Runner, remains. When it comes to character progression, things are pretty straightforward. Your other characters gathers XP in combat and level up to have more stats. Player will have the freedom to shape their main characters by allocating stats points gained after a series of leveling up to strength, magic, or endurance stats, which then affect certain builds. The same thing to archetypes, which will have their separate progression as they will be gaining archetype XP instead. As the archetype levels up, the more skills it unlocks. And later on, these unlocked skills can be inherited by different archetypes of your choice, allowing players great flexibility and creativity in terms of their builds. As players improve their bonds with their comrades, the more archetypes they have access to. The higher the bond rank, the more advanced and powerful archetypes they have access to. This is the reason why I enjoy doing my social activities, knowing that strengthening my bonds would pay greatly later on, and the whole process provided me with great sense of progression. What is an RPG without vast and intricate customization? Character customization is where metaphor Refantazio shines brightly once again. Players can customize their members with different types of equipment to improve their combat prowess. These equipment types range from hundreds of options to experiment and choose from, so you can build your ultimate setup. This includes weapons, armors, gears, and trinkets. These items are ready for creative setups, and often late game items add another layer of complexity in combat by offering unique and advanced effects that vastly affect the player's setup. On top of that, when archetypes gets into the mix, things get interesting. And as mentioned, archetypes offer a wide variety of abilities, and late game archetypes offer much more complex and powerful skills for you to wield and experiment with, which can satisfy beginner to advanced players. I could go all day by trying different setups with different themes or builds. Mixing and matching archetype skills and playing with different party members is what I enjoy the most, and as a builds content creator, it will take a while for me to run out of options. Compared to previous Atlus titles, players can select archetypes for their characters and change them on the fly. This feature provides flexibility in team strategy, though a party formation save feature or templates would make changing lineups less cumbersome. When it comes to performance, Metaphor Refantazio is expected to be a not demanding game, so instead, it is very important to determine if there were game-related bugs that may halt progress. But the good thing is, during my multiple playthroughs, there were no bugs or glitches encountered in my experience. On a high-end system with an RTX 4090, the game runs smoothly, mostly holding a stable 120 FPS, which is expected. There were occasional frame dips in specific areas, for example, when exploring the Gauntlet Runner. But overall, the experience is free from serious performance issues, with only minor stuttering when exploring dungeons. Metaphor Refantazio's greatest strength is its core gameplay, thus it will receive a solid 9 in our book. Replayability and longevity are the two main aspects that I'm always keen to observe, especially when a game is priced at a full AAA price of $69.99 USD. In a single straight playthrough, Atlus promises 65 to 75 hour experience, and I can confidently confirm this with an 82-hour first playthrough and got the true ending on my end. Replayability wise, players can continue their journey in a New Game Plus, which carries over archetype levels and gear, but with a big caveat. You will have to rebuild bonds with NPCs to unlock your archetypes again, and you will lose your character's levels and stats. Even if this is the case, I do have my previous overpowered gear and max virtual levels, so I had so much time rebuilding my main character stats and breezed through my second playthrough. One of the main gripes that I had is the lack of significant new content in New Game Plus, and this may deter some players from fully committing to a second playthrough despite the promise of a secret boss fight that can only be accessed in this mode. Most players will be playing this game once, and the ones that will push through are completionists, since you do have 4 endings to get, or getting all the possible items that the game offers. Or challenge runners, since they can access the hardest difficulty in New Game Plus. If you are like me who loves to experiment by min-maxing different types of party builds, or love to collect everything in the game, you will get more than what you paid for, thanks to the intricate archetype system and deep level of customization. With the amount of content that this game offers, not including the possible New Game Plus hours a player can get out of, the $69.99 USD price tag has been justified. Metaphor Refantazio will get a score of 8 for its replayability. With all that being said, it is time for the verdict. I will still stand on what I believe in, that it is high time to aim for a completely different approach for improvements. But Atlus capitalized on its years of experience by retaining its tested design to bring another quality product to the table despite the glaring reuse elements. Metaphor Refantazio is a must-play JRPG of 2024 and will receive a solid 8.5 for the final score. Metaphor Refantazio weaves a compelling narrative within a meticulously crafted world, deftly combining the best elements of Atlus's RPG style with meaningful real-world themes. While it stumbles in some areas such as dungeon designs and enemy variety, its story, soundtrack, and character interactions offer a truly immersive experience. If you're drawn to rich storytelling and don't mind a few quirks, Metaphor Refantazio will grip you with its thought-provoking journey through the highs and lows of an intricate, mirror-like society.